from your experience and all the chats you have with our clients and all the people you meet in the ecosystem, what were for you the most important key takeaways from 2024?
What you see in general is that GenAI really sparked, let's say, a new wave of interests of companies into AI. What you saw is that traditional AI reached a bit, let's say, a plateau over the last years. And then, let's say, with GenAI, you saw lots of new companies looking into what can data bring us.
To add to that, as we see now on the Gartner hype cycle, we see that GenAI is actually just over the hype. So we potentially indeed get into more realistic context where there is a bit of a disillusion. Companies tend to see like, okay, we were expecting more. But the good thing is that will stabilize. So maybe on GenAI, what do you think is like the outlook for next year?
If you look at the general systems at this moment, it's a lot of, or most situations, it's prompt answer. Mm-hmm. So if you look at GenAI, it's used in a way that it really supports already people in doing their job more efficient and in a better way. But it's lots of situations still. Let's say you ask a question, you get an answer. For instance, translate me this text, and it gives you an answer back. If you now see what a bit the holy grail, or what all the industry is working towards, is two systems that can do more than that. At this moment, you automate certain tasks, but you're not automating workflows yet. And if you really want to do that, you are looking at systems that can do more than just that one task. Mm-hmm. They can also, let's say, plan. Systems at this moment, they have no or limited memory. Mm-hmm. Future systems will really accumulate lots of knowledge and have memory and share it also between different systems. And that's what they call AI agents. And then you really go to situations where multiple agents can start collaborating, sharing memory, and let's say really start executing tasks dependently and independently of each other as well. And maybe that sounds a bit like science fiction, but there are already, let's say, lightweight applications of those types of AI agents. So it's just a matter of time, in my opinion, mm-hmm. that we'll see that transforming lots of businesses.
Yeah. Indeed, news is booming on Agentic. Yeah. And I also think for clients, it could be interesting to not only embed it, but also make it as actionable as possible.
You've been very active in data over the last years and in different roles as well. Like, if you now see the evolution of GenAI, how would you introduce these new technologies to them? How can companies start using GenAI?
So first thing there, I think, is putting a very clear framework around an initiative is super important. Definitely with GenAI, compared to like traditional software solutions, they either have, let's say, a very binary answer, like it works or it doesn't work. And if you compare that to GenAI, I think the vast risk or like the major challenge is that a lot of people get very comfortable with GenAI, and then all of a sudden you have this hallucination, you have this potential risk that the model is not entirely giving the answers that they are supposed to give.
But in a very convincing way sometimes.
And in a very convincing way. And that's, I think, like the hallucination part is definitely something, if you are well aware of that potential risk, I think it's fair. But I do think for companies, that's a very challenging way. So how do we cope with that hallucination part? That's one thing. And on the other hand, as I mentioned, like GenAI going this fast, I think we might forget the human aspect in all this transformation. I think a lot of change projects are in the end about the human, involving the human in the decision process, in the training. And as we have a company, we have a bunch of seniors, a bunch of ambassadors who go very deep in the research side and translate that into how do we embed that in our projects, in our way of working. So really the human part, growing the internal capabilities, making sure that people know what are the benefits, but also the potential downsides of a tooling. Definitely key takeaway from the projects and the interactions we had with clients. And then how would companies tomorrow start with GenAI? Is what we typically see at clients is that they start with not only exploring, but also, let's say, setting up everything in, let's say, an enterprise, safe, secure, and stable governance way. But at the same time that they try with an internal focus first, typical use case in the HR space, in the knowledge space, to easier distribute knowledge among colleagues. Onboarding of new colleagues is typically a use case where we see a tremendous instant value creation for clients. So that's what we really, really find very powerful to kick off the GenAI track at a client. And the good thing there is that we have our own GenAI competence team. We have a vast track record of a mutual amount of cases. So there we let's say we jump and we de-risk. So typically a lot of downsides about GenAI is that people nowadays think that it's full plug and play.
Exactly.
But if you don't put a governance around it, you don't, let's say, provide adequate training, it has some downsides.
How can a company prepare themselves or their workforce as well for GenAI?
I think there's more AI and GenAI embedded in the current tools everybody's already using than we most of the time think. So I think identifying those inside your company, writing a policy around there, giving some knowledge around those, some inspiration as well. I think what we saw a few years ago, which is still, I think, in certain companies valid, is imagine that you're using Microsoft Office. It's like how to best use your Outlook, your Excel, or your Word. Actually, you could pivot.
To prompt engineer.
You could pivot exactly that to GenAI today. It's like a lot of people get like this hype dissolution triangle. They're like super high. Oh, I have access. 1 week later, they have a bit of a setback because they didn't exactly meet the expectations. And all of a sudden you hear feedback from boardrooms like, oh, we bought Copilot license, nobody's using. We bought toolings, but in the end, it's not about the tooling. It's about the adoption. It's about the best practices and embedding it in your way of working. So you need ambassadors, you need the training, you need to make sure that you have a knowledge base. For example, prompting standards, the best practices of the do's and the don'ts. So definitely there, it's not about the tooling. Yes, it's partially about the tooling, but it's about the framework you put around it. It's definitely about the framework. So you need indeed some use cases to inspire people. You need a framework to make sure that people are not disillusioned, disappointed after a few weeks. And you definitely need, let's say, some boundaries. So some expertise on which data do we put in? Do we have, like, let's say, an enterprise framework around it that makes it secure, the data that we upload? What are the use cases we don't use it for? Those things are super important, definitely.
And if you look at GenAI, traditional AI generates like a probability. GenAI, in the end, it generates content like texts, like video, image, voice, code. If you look at all these different things, where do you think GenAI in reality will bring the most value, and how will it evolve?
Great question. Two phases, like today and tomorrow. So let's start with today. What we see today is, I think, Claude from Anthropic, GPT, OpenAI, the 4.0 model, the mini model. It's awesome. We're going into reasoning, multi-interactions. You can ask a question. You can iterate on that question. Those use cases for text summarization, any model that is connected to the internet, super powerful. Any model that is connected to an internal database, super powerful.
So really for querying, you see it as the first use case as being, let's say, Googling internal and external data, and really, let's say, being able to get answers fast.
Yes, definitely in a company context where it is secure, safe, and where we, for example, train a model, let's say, reinforce a model based on the local context and more the RAG principle, like you have a question and the model actually tries to identify the data domain or the knowledge specifically for your question, and actually the return that you get after the inference with the model is specifically around that context. All companies used to have Notions, Confluence, SharePoints in the past. I think we all know the pains of those environments. I definitely think that having a bot interfering with the internal knowledge at the moment is one of the strongest use cases. FAQ, I think policies, typically HR leave policy, typically onboarding new colleagues, where is that knowledge? Those use cases are very mature, they're very safe, and they're very easy measurable in terms of ROI.
And is this not already an example of a use case that's already integrated in existing tooling of companies?
Yes. If you ask tomorrow, is it the easiest way to start? No, I think the easiest way is to inspire people and tell them, hey, on your free time, go explore, check out Perplexity, check out the tools. A lot of tools are let's say, wrappers on top of large models and are often very free. So to explore outside of company boundaries is my personal advice. But if you talk about company value, then I think of ROE, I think of impact and value creation for a company. Then I think those, let's say, knowledge availability, consuming internal knowledge or facilitating internal policies or procedures are like easygoing and making directly a tangible impact. Because then it's not about technology, it's about the impact you make with that technology. And we've seen a lot of those cases at say mid-size and larger companies, and they actually pay off. Those cases actually don't disappoint. So that's what I would definitely advise. But those are cases ready to ship today. Those are cases where we have proven track record as well. We have a very, very positive return from the partnerships that we had. If we look tomorrow, I think what we discussed as well already over the past week is everything more in the space of Agentic, where we add this extra flavor of actionability, like booking an appointment, really changing something, and actually adding the action after the querying. So asking a question to a model and then having this human model interaction, and then having the connection to potential tools, whether it's a calendar, where there's some booking tool, whether it's some resource management or some planning. So actually that next phase where models and, let's say, traditional software actually interact into the agentic space. That's definitely what we see in 2025, and where there is a lot of hype today, but where there's also a vast, super additional potential that we identify next year. Maybe if we bridge into the direction of, let's say, a unified data platform, like a cloud-first unified, where a company can actually have easy access to a lot of their data domains, and on top of that, build data products. What are for you, like for companies, like the key reasons why they would still, let's say, in 2025, if not yet the case, of course, move in the direction of let's say, unified data platform?
So if you look at data platforms, why do you need them? To break down the walls between these operational systems, to get that data on a unified platform, to also have an environment where you can build data products. So where you have your data scientists and your BI experts creating these data products, and that you can expose them in the way that needs to be consumed. Sometimes real time, sometimes not, but also sometimes visual through an API and so on. And if you look at how companies have been working traditionally, there are, let's say, lots of more legacy closed source systems. You see that they are really now moving towards these more modern data platforms because of the flexibility that they have, and also the related costs, because these legacy systems can be sometimes very costly for what they do.
On that note, how do you think companies ideally look at the ROI of data products?
I think it's always a very difficult question, how you measure ROI. If you look at ROI and data and AI, it's in lots of situations, it's linked by, let's say, cost efficiency, saving costs. It's about generating new revenue streams. But there are also, let's say, other aspects that are very important, like, for instance, fraud and risk. So these are latent costs. I mean, they are not a cost until it becomes a problem. You didn't detect them.
Reputation.
So reputational risk. Yeah. I mean, how are you going to quantify that? But also related to ESG or more environmental as well. I mean, you have lots of projects that bring maybe not immediate value, but an indirect value, and there again, it's about what's your company strategy, and what are the priorities in your company strategy, and what are the things we need to improve on first. And it's not always, let's say, easy to put, let's say, dollars on it. So maybe it's better to look at return on investment as what's our goal, what we want to achieve, what do we want to become better at, and can data help us? And then it's important to look at the use cases and say, like, okay, is this feasible? Of course, is this costly to create or not? Is it worth it? and to also fail fast in your POC phase. If you see this is not going to work out, let's kill it. So ROI for me is always a very tricky one. Certainly not one that needs to be ignored, but very tricky to really look at it just from a monetary perspective.
Yeah, I think as you stated, it could be a mix of both hard and soft KPIs to define your exact ROI. That brings us maybe a bit in the domain of everything regarding data governance. So we have a data governance practice, a unit focusing on everything related to quality, lineage, catalog, and stuff like that. Do you see any evolutions there? Is the market there maturing? How do you see that market evolving?
It's very remarkable. You would expect that in the world of data, things like data quality, data lineage, data management is something that should be super mature, because look what we're doing with GenAI, look what we're doing with AI. But actually it's not the case. These are let's say there are lots of toolings out there that are really good in the data management part and so on. But there, the evolution around MLOps, I think around data management, data quality, you're seeing the same speed and evolution as well. And I'm really also looking forward on to see how these will be merging together more and more. Like now, lots of companies that focus solely at the data quality part or really a champion in data management, but are really, let's say, starting maybe to create their data quality capabilities. And in the end, also these will start to integrate more and more, and so that you have, let's say, solutions that can help the clients end to end around their data quality.
Yeah, I think fully agree. Let's say based on the data maturity assessment that we have and that we execute very often at a large scale of clients, whether they're small or mid-size or large caps, we clearly see that it's good to find a balance in the overall end-to-end data maturity, whether it's governance, product, lineage, internal capabilities. So I definitely think doing that assessment for clients can be very enlightening to better understand where they're currently standing and what would be, let's say, the best next action to grow in let's say, an end-to-end maturity on the data side. Maybe you as a CEO of Dataroots, how do you see Dataroots staying on top of things?
And from the start of the company, we've been focusing on innovation. We never got stuck in these technologies. We evolved together with how the data world is evolving, and that comes, of course, also at a certain cost, and meaning that we always have been focusing on reskilling, on upskilling, and on being very, let's say, you need to question yourself as a company constantly. Like, okay, are we doing this in the right way? Is this the best way of doing this for our clients as well? That's why you're doing it, to bring that value. And there, you're looking at the pragmatism that I said, the impact that you can have, the situations of the clients, and if you do that with let's say an open mind, not being constrained into a certain, let's say, technology or provider, and you really do that with an open mind, you can keep that focus very well. But it requires a constant investment into our team. We also have tech leads within Dataroots that are really focused on that. And also with that, we have been building sometimes connectors for certain new tooling out there, which we believe. So we
actually contributing to the ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. As well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.